Good evening, chaps and chapesses. So I've been watching a few videos today, and one guy in particular, a guy called Dean Henderson, very interesting fella. However, he's using it came across as he was using his understanding of the Nephilim coming from Sitchin, which I would have to take to task. So I think what I'm going to do is try and explain what the fallen angels are. For that, we have to look at the Kabbalistic tree of life. Okay. Now, if you study the antediluvian, what's clear is the high magicians did their magic using crystals. So they stored their power gained from the rituals, etc., into their own crystals. That a corruption was put into the magic system, and it was put into the mix by the Nephilim, who were the offspring of the so-called fallen angels. Now, when you understand the tree of life, what you've got to understand is it's depicting different dimensions that exist at the same time that make up this current universe as we understand it. Specifically, we're talking in relation to the earth. Now, the fallen angels, as we would understand them, are what you might say the entities that belonged into the Kulapothic realms, which is the hells, which hold these particular entities. And basically, as I understand what it's actually saying is that at some point these entities managed to move out of the Kulapothic realm into this dimension and create a bloodstream in which they'd infused a coding from their realm, and they'd installed it into a bloodline that could then exist in this place. And what that did, the genetic coding, it gave these fallen angels, as they're called, the capacity to actually access this bloodline and possess it. So when you're speaking in terms of the Nephilim and extraterrestrials especially, because this is just such a mix-up that people are going to fall for if you're not careful. They may be extraterrestrial to this realm, but they are also very interconnected to this realm and have been so for the entire time this Earth system has been in existence. So whereas you get the current extraterrestrial alien script, which is trying to basically have you, humanity, believe there's nothing you can do, none of it's your fault, it's all the fault of these aliens, gov, as it were. Now, what that is actually doing is so sinister and dark that unless you do understand a big portion of occult knowledge, you're going to miss the fact that what's actually going on there is a mechanic by which they are going to remove the link between humanity and its higher aspects. And in doing so, what it's doing is removing the interconnection that humanity has with the angelic worlds, or the worlds outside of the physical dimension, in which there are entities that obviously don't have a body, but which you need to live in this dimension. So in doing that, what they're actually doing is disconnecting you from all ideas of responsibility of any kind that you would have down here, which is required if you're going to create a slave race, which is exactly what they're doing to everybody. They're creating slaves, you know. The cryptocurrency is, well, a crypt is a dead thing. It's where dead people go. So cryptocurrency is a currency for the dead. A grasp on language, and especially the occult, is necessary to actually be able to put these dots together. So if they can disconnect man and responsibility for what he does or he or she does while they are alive down here, then you have basically removed all the living creatures down here completely from the heavenly realms completely. You know, you will become the golem, which they are very busy trying to get you going on now with the masks. The golem can't speak. You know, this is what they're trying to do, and you're doing it by consent. This is most important. I haven't worn a mask anywhere, and I've been everywhere. You see, the thing is, they've sent out these rules on the TV that you think you have to obey, so you're actually policing it yourself. You're doing it yourself. Can you see what I'm saying? And now look, if you are confronted with anybody in a shop over a mask, you don't have to get angry. You just need to then request a copy of their public liability for the enforcement of a medical procedure. Now, consider it in this way. A doctor has to have public liability, and that will cost him many thousands of pounds per year. If he is going to offer himself up as a medical advisor and a medical practitioner, okay, they're very serious parts of the medical industry, and the public liability is a major part of it. You can't do that. You're struck off. If you don't have public liability, you're classed as unfit to be giving medical advice or practicing medicine. You can't do that. So, in essence, what the government and then through the councils and your local MP has done is move down what's coming from the top, this idea that you have to do this because it's a command. Then the local idiots are putting that out to you via your Facebook, etc. But ultimately, you're actually doing it and policing it. Because nobody else is, really. And if the shops do, you want to remind them that, hang on a minute, you're being put up as a scapegoat here. If somebody collapses in your premises due to the fact that you've enforced a mask, where's your insurance cover for everything that will come when you're sued, when a claim is brought against you? You will not have it. You do not have it. Yet the court case will continue. Now, you're going to say, well, I've done this because the government told me to do it. Well, you know, this is where the self-responsibility must be massaged within all of us, because this is where they're tripping people up. They've massaged into a position where we don't believe we have any responsibility for our actions. And we do. We do in law, because that mimics spiritual law. So I'm not talking about government policy here, which is just commercial garbage, and the very authority that these corporate entities such as government, these health bodies, etc., are claiming to have over you. And the only authority is, when you break it down, is fear. They put you in fear so that you will obey the guidelines. Now, this is important again. The guideline, what is a guideline? It's a guide. It's a line, because it's shipping. Everything, when you start to understand the terminology and the language in which it's being presented, you can see that they're playing to a different script, so they're laughing their heads off. They are laughing their absolute asses off at everybody for obeying and being obedient slaves to this. Yeah? So it is important that we understand that the alien situation as it's being presented is an attempt to pull you away from self-responsibility by blaming something outside the entire world. That's a very dangerous position for mankind to be in if he doesn't feel he has any responsibility or any connection to anything higher than himself, and especially higher than these tin pot self-possessed authorities that are pushing this COVID pandemic. So I hope that just gives a bit of an insight into how I've understood the idea of an alien entity. It's alien to the physical realm, but it's not alien to the story of man. Not by any means. We're all interconnected. And the ultimate connection shows itself in the fact that as a human, as a man, a woman, we have the capacity to be either dark or light or both. So ultimately, the battleground is on the earth, and it's in man, because we are the creators, because we are in the image of the Creator. So we are creating the energy that's showing itself and proving itself manifest in this world right now. You know, this is the idea behind the magical realm, because our thought processes, our feelings, everything that we bring from within us becomes manifest in the physical. That's the beauty of it. That's the responsibility we have as individuals in relation to what we're actually putting out into this world. So it is important that we don't let them fool you into disengaging from the fact that you are responsible for what's going on down here as an individual, as well and as much as we present to you the forces that are moving this from all the higher levels. Ultimately, they can only do that and achieve that if we take part, because it's our energy that feeds the system. So back to the magic that went bad. So through this Nephilim bloodline, they had the capacity to understand that they could reform the Kabbalic grid to reform the matrix, while keeping the matrix in more or less the same semblance. And the way they did that is to present, so inner circle, outer circle. So the inner circle have the real format in which the Kabbalah shows in pictorial form how everything interacts in this universe to give us this earth as we understand it and all the realms higher, so the heavens. So this is Ragnarok as well. This is Ragnarok being explained as to everything that's been set up on the grid from man to gods. At the end of it all will be eaten up. So it's Ragnarok if you want to go through Odin. It's the end of days if we're going Hebrew. But ultimately what it is the elite craft operate to the correct Kabbalah. But the way that it's been put out in all the books since the Renaissance, which is what it was all about, the Enlightenment, it was about putting this information in so they could do this, achieve this, with John Dee, especially installing it into the British Isles. So that they set it up so that the Kabbalah grid was still in place, but the way that everybody approached it through the magic would actually be creating the inverse and would reverse themselves in relation to not operating on the front of the tree, but onto the reverse of the tree and the tunnels of Set. So that's all your magic. It doesn't matter what fraternity you're in, Freemasonry, whether you're a Wicca, whether you are a New Ager, whatever you are doing, you are inverting everything that you are trying to perform, yet still feeding the ultimate controllers of this changed Kabbalic grid, the priesthood that are controlling it. Now, you can look at Jesus then and see that what he was doing was by enforcing the law, he was bringing the system back. So that the new priesthood that would be formed after that would put the Kabbalah back as it should be, so that everybody was operating correctly, and what we were trying to achieve, which was the system based in what we class as Christendom, would become a physical manifestation, which it appeared to have done for 1,000 years. And then we get to the Crusades and things are starting to change. So that's when they're preparing then. You see, you look at the Templars, what did they receive in the Crusades? Well, they got knowledge from the Solomon's Temple, basically. Yet it was handed to them by the Magi, who claimed to, you might not understand this, but we understand the true meaning of the cross. So you can see that although it was given to the Templars, there was still that inner circle knowledge being held by those that helped the Templars gain this knowledge from the Middle East. So naturally when they came, they changed the Kabbalic grid, and then it was a case of getting people to join in as they did. They created the banking system. So all this credit, this stuff started to operate. They created the Navy. So it's the Phoenicians again, sort of that same system rebirthing. You know, the empire is on the sea. It's never seen. You can never really chase it and see it. We just see the pictures that they present to us on the lands as this sea empire has took over nations. And this goes right back to Babylon, even Egypt. So it's the same kind of mechanic. You know, the forces on the sea, and that what we see as history is all about what they've been doing on the land. So this is why you never actually get to the core of it. We are getting to that point now. There's some smart people about today, and, together, we all seem to be coming again to another point. The last time it started to come to this was like 2013-14, which is when the elite wrecked it by destroying folk like me, and then giving those that were sort of prepared to move in the courts with the law because it had gone widespread, they gave them the flat earth. And off they went, never to be seen again. So it really did disband the move and the energy collection that was coming together around 2014. We don't want to fall for that again if they come out with some new bunkum that captures a lot of people's minds, when in effect, like flat earth, it's not going to alter the day-to-day joys and woes of your life by learning whether the earth is actually flat or round. Does it actually matter in the big scheme of things right now? No, it doesn't. We stood up, we lie down, we breathe, we walk, we move, clouds go by, etc. So something's real, we're living in it. What it actually is, I don't think at this point it's worth your efforts to pursue. Far better you pursue something that can actually change the position that we are actually in. And a big part of that is not allowing this priestcraft to completely remove you from self-responsibility, and more importantly the fact that you have a connection to all the realms in this universe. So that's my take with the alien thing, and I think a lot of clever people out there, you just need to give that a little bit of thought, because the entire Hebrew tradition has its origin in the books of Enoch, which were antediluvian in their writings. I personally, from my studies for over 30 years, am quite convinced that the projected good people that Enoch actually did prophesy would come in many, many centuries to come, have been sidelined over the millennia and hijacked by this dark priestcraft. So they've placed their own men on as though they are these people that the books of Enoch prophesies as being great men. And I think that's how they've managed to completely and utterly invert the Hebrew tradition to the point that the entire global Hebrew people believe they are Jewish, which wasn't of the Hebrew tradition. They were never Israelites, and are responsible for the Second Temple. So, you know, these things have to be considered, but you've got to understand that when you get into alien stuff, etc., you're dealing then with the high magic, the Kabbalah, the tree. And, you know, this is where the Bible becomes a lot of allegorical. You know, people understand it as they do, but as you start to understand this secret knowledge, then it's a different language that's being spoken as well. It's a big count, is one thing, from changes of ages. And with Jesus, it was definitely an attempt to shift the grid, or the Kabbalah in the grid that they were creating, the matrix, into a better place, back into how it should be, so that everything's in harmony. And obviously now that's totally under attack. The institutions have been obliterated, but it doesn't mean that the people have to lose sight of the morality that did come with that. Because that is what gives you your sense of responsibility for your own actions and how you interact, and what it is as an energy you actually put out into this world. So good or bad, it really is coming outside from within us. We're either expressing bad, all good, neither of which are really going to serve you well because you're out of balance. Or do we try and operate in a balanced method, i.e. some actions we're going to do are going to be classed as good, but they're also going to be classed as bad to some others. Once you start to wrestle with that capacity and take responsibility for it, on your personal journey, things do start to work in your favour, and you do start to understand your position in this world a little bit better. So with that, I will shut my mouth and say, till the next time.